which I thought we'll see the houses in the back.
Yeah.
Go ahead. I'm gonna explain. Why is the door not opening?
Okay.
We have to use that. So,
Absolutely.
I think it's important for everybody to know too that the inspector's job is to point out everything.
Yeah. So our job is not to answer questions also, but to ask questions, because there's a lot of signs of things that historically only the owner might know. And these are questions that I ask with lots of confidence, because these are, some brokers don't know. It's, well, first of all, it's not their job to ask those questions.
Yeah.
They're there to protect their client. But as the inspector, we want to ask the right questions. We want to know the history of the building. We want to know everything we can from the owner. We always review the declaration, but sometimes the owner doesn't know. Sometimes the owner doesn't know. So it's important,
Right.
you know. And sometimes when you ask the owner these questions, then they know it's just never been addressed, right? My particular association covers that. Even though a driveway, for example, is not the building, you know, if you have an asphalt driveway that's cracking, it's expensive to fix, right?
Yeah.
So a buyer wants to know, hey, am I gonna have to spend $5,000, $6,000, $7,000 on the driveway? I know it's not affecting the house, but
You go as far as looking at fencing?
fencing, not so much. It's considered like an accessory. Accessories, even like, I'll inspect a heat pump, I'll inspect an air conditioning system. But like an AC is considered an accessory. It doesn't have to be delivered, right? You just have to deliver heat. So, you know, but I inspect those things. Swimming pools, stuff like that, we stay away from. But really, I have a very unique way that I work, and that is that I create a good relationship with my clients so that I understand what they want, because every client's different. And while I understand what they want, I address their needs based on that. I'm very patient, and that's very important for inspectors. There's some inspectors that'll come in and out in 45 minutes. They want to leave. They'll send you the report, bye-bye.
Right.
They don't want to hear from you, right? But for a lot of buyers, this is it's their biggest investment.
Yeah.
With
But this comes from how many years of doing this?
So I've been doing this since 2018.
So,
Okay, I've been doing this with companies before, and then I went on my own. I created a clientele that is loyal. In reality, I don't work for the brokers. I work for the buyer, and I work for the house. You know, when I do an inspection, I'm not only protecting the buyer, but I'm also protecting the seller, and I'm protecting the brokers, right?
Yes.
Because nobody wants down the road to have a headache and go back, and nobody wants that. So I'm really there to put all the cards on the table so that they understand what they're buying, they're aware of the consequences, and they can move forward with confidence. That's my job.
what is 3 questions you would recommend buyers asking their building inspector before committing?
Most importantly, are you part of an association, a recognized association? And some of these associations are recognized by the OSA. Are you insured? That's very important. You have to be insured. And clearly experience, right? What's your experience in this field, and how much, you know, what's your background in it? It's important. Before I went into building inspections, I was actually with windows and doors for many years.
Okay.
And that sort of led me into the inspection, I guess, direction, because a lot of my clients were asking me so many questions related to their house. And I was able to answer them, but I wasn't licensed to answer them. So I felt, hey, you know what? I'm going to take that extra step and go back and do my studies. I had a great mentor, and I learned a lot, and I built a clientele, and I'm very proud of it, and I love what I do, and I love that I'm helping people. A lot of people don't understand what an inspection is. They think I'm going to come in here and I'm going to like rip down walls to look at pipes.
It's a visual inspection.
It's a visual, non-exhaustive. And if there is anything that leads you to believe that there's something beyond just visual, then we're going to recommend experts. We're going to ask for somebody to come in.
Give me examples of that. You have sometimes...
A further evaluation could be if I see any weird-looking cracks on foundation.
Okay.
Right? This could
because
be
there's the superficial cracks, which is just
There's the curing cracks. It's called the shrinkage cracks, which is very normal, a part of the curing of a foundation. Most houses will have cracks. But then you have structural cracks that look odd. different shapes, a little bit more wide.
So those ones you would
That's serious.
suggest
Absolutely.
an engineering firm or a specialized company.
An expert in that field, and I would actually even suggest that they visit or address that before they finalize any deal.
Okay, so that would be one where further investigation needs to be done.
Yeah.
Give me maybe two more. Fireplaces?
Fireplaces
Not
usually not 99.9% of the time is not covered in a sale of a home under a warranty, right? It's always sold as is. The issues with fireplaces is the insurance. They might not want to cover you unless you've done your due part to make sure it's safe for usage.
Yeah.
So a fireplace, and some people will believe like in certain areas you can't use wood burning fireplaces anymore because it's not legal in the municipality. However, what are you going to do when it's minus 40 degrees outside and there's no power? This is your only source of heat.
Right.
You're allowed to use it then.
Okay.
So you want to make sure it's safe so that the insurance will cover you, because I don't believe the insurance companies are eager to to spend money to help people. So unless you do your due part and make sure you're covered. And this can be the same thing with older panels, aluminum cables, aluminum electric cables, structural stuff, like maybe floors that are dipping, right?
Right.
But that depends. If we're going to look at a newer building and the floors are dipping.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I have a 300-year-old home,
and then it's different,
obviously.
and that's the normal.
Right.
That's normal.
So we wouldn't push. Once we look and we feel that the floors are cooking, we're not going to go. It's not justifiable to go spend extra money to get some expert to come in. They're going to say, well, the house is 300 years
Yeah.
old. Unless
I will say that, but every buyer, you might have a buyer who's like very scared of that.
Right, but if there's no signs, is this something that you say as an inspector? If there's no sign that this is recent or that there's movement.
Yeah, so we look for
Currently.
that. We look for that. We'll look for signs, especially on the walls inside, like where doors and windows
New
are.
cracks
You'll see
or-
cracks.
yeah.
Yeah. It's impossible to tell during a visual inspection on one visit if something, especially structural, is active or not. Right?
Right.
This is impossible.
No, but if I just recently painted or replastered a room,
Right.
and then suddenly I start seeing some new signs of
Yeah.
cracks, that could be a potential sign.
Yes, absolutely. You know, there's movement, and
But if
you
I
know,
haven't painted or touched that room in
and it's been like
20
that for
years,
yeah,
maybe it's
normal.
not that a big of a
I
concern.
do inspections all over the city, and I've seen old homes, new homes, and it's very common with the older homes to have those squeaking floors,
Yeah.
dipped little floors. You take a little
It's part of the
marble, you put
charm.
it part of the
me.
charm. Some people, yeah, absolutely. Some people like it. Again, if you're my client as a buyer, you like it. Another client as a buyer, it's their first home, and they might be afraid of it. So I ease the situation. I think it's important for the brokers as well to calm certain
Yes.
situations, because we as inspectors have to deliver a report that's recognized by our association, and there's certain words that we have to use because it's there to protect everybody, and those words can be scary.
They could be scary, but I think it's all in the delivery also of the inspector.
Yes.
I've worked with different inspectors
Yes,
obviously over the
delivery
years.
is
and
important.
It's all about how it's delivered to the client and to the
Right.
broker.
I did a recent inspection in NDG, and the first thing we saw was that the bricks were bowing. And, you know, to me right away, that's something that needs to be looked at, okay? Because I'm not a mason, and I'm not in a position to tell my client what it's going to cost. I'm in a position to tell him, you should get a mason to find out what this costs. The owner said they knew about it and said that they got an estimate for about $7,000 to $8,000. I put it on the table for them to know,
Yeah.
right? We do not want to be the ones to break bad news. We don't want to interfere in the transaction. That's not our job. We want to make sure that the buyers understand what they're buying, and understand what they're getting into, and understand what's involved. There's
But then,
emotion.
the honeymoon period ends, and then you start having the issues, and then you
Right.
regret that you went too fast.
Yes, and I'll tell you something. The emotions, when I started off as an inspector, that took me a little bit of time to evolve, because when I first started, and I'm saying this, but then I realized over time, this is someone's home. They've been living here. This means a lot to them,
Yeah.
and I have to respect that.
The worst thing is to do all this marketing, have the house on the market, the visits, to this, to that, and then finding out after negotiation of the promise to purchase that there's this issue and the
Right.
buyer's not interested in pursuing.
Right.
It's a waste of time. So pre-inspections or something you do. What would you say is the ratio of?
80% pre-achat, like someone before buying, and
The
20% is a pre-listing. Sometimes I'll get calls just to inspect a roof alone.
This is something that I never thought of, but you can also be called on just one specific item,
Yeah.
or it doesn't have to be a home buying scenario either.
No.
It could just be,
It can
what's your
be-
opinion on?
Exactly.
My
I've been
basement.
called to look in attics. The most important thing when it comes to doors and windows is how they're installed. Really, people take for granted the installation. If you don't install these things properly, it doesn't matter how much money you pay for them, it's worthless.
They're not going to work correctly.
They're not going to work correctly. And those is a good point you brought up, because people don't realize how expensive that is, honestly. If you're going to buy a 1980 home with original windows, it's due. On my report, I'm going to mention stuff, the windows are dated and it's budget for new windows.
But again, the dated part, it doesn't mean that after 20 years they're no good. It just means
No, it just means you should budget in the near future. This is something that you might consider.
Because some
upgrading.
windows, I mean, if they're well maintained, could last even longer than that. There's a house in Beaconsfield that I sold many, many years ago.
Yeah.
It had a problem, and we went back and forth to negotiate that problem because they said this was a major concern. Like, I'm not going to say what it is because I don't know.
Yeah.
I drive by it today, 15 years, 20 years later, and I can still see that they didn't do it. It's the same owner. So it was a big concern at the moment of the transaction,
Right.
or at least that's what they were saying. And now 20 years later, the problem's still there. They haven't even touched it. So it goes with what you were saying,
Yeah.
updates. When we are at
Updates,
the point of
maintenance.
making the purchase, the inspector gives us we are all excited. We're going to go through this checklist and get everything done. But I would bet that most of 90% of the people, they don't even.
Some do in the beginning, in the honeymoon stage.
Yeah.
But a lot just let go. Life. You're busy.
Other
right? People are
priorities,
busy.
yeah.
There's priorities.
So booking an inspection, we're there at this point now to end. I need an inspector. What can I expect as a delay? What would be your typical delay from the time I give you a
we
call?
understand that if you have a promise to purchase, there's a delay in clause 8.1, which is going to tell you how many days for the inspector to arrive, and then usually it will deliver a report within 2 to 3 days. I have a lot of great reviews just because of that.
Because it's not I buy the house, it's over.
Right.
I buy the house, I'm living in it for X amount of time, and I need to maintain it, keep it up.
Yeah. So as an inspection, I want to know how you feel as a buyer. I want to know what you're thinking. I mean, are you coming there to demolish and rebuild? That's one thing. Are you coming there? It's your first home and you're on a tight budget and you want to make sure everything is. That's another thing. So it's very important for me to have that discussion with my clients.
If you need more information, you can reach us or go directly to.
My company is Westbeck Inspections Inc. You can call me anytime, 514-573-4351. My name is Keshles. You could look me up.